Salutations, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the podcast, the song social outfit outcasts, crazy weirdos, and all around nerds can read, talk, and debate all things pop culture. With me, as always, is my co-host, the nerdy occultist, aka the Authenticator, Dalton L. Mortimer.
Hello, folks.
And I am your host, last time on Wannabe, the brings more pop culture. How's everyone doing tonight?
I am good, mostly just bored at the moment. And unnecessarily tired, which is weird because I didn't wake up until 1 today.
I'd say we're going to change that, but I honestly don't know.
I mean, there's plenty of stupidity to yell at that will get my blood flowing again. Yay.
Yeah, and as for me, I don't want to get too into it. Let's just say life has been kind of kicking my ass last few days.
He Brainstormer is going through a Job style arc at the moment.
Yeah. So I sent this, surprisingly. It's from WeGotThisCovered.com. Almost none of them have careers outside of the Marvel Universe. The MCU's golden handcuffs blasted at the death of cinema. It's written by Scott Campbell. Covers June 5th, 2023. Scott Campbell. Why is that?
Yeah, I'm sure we've done articles of his before, but more to the point, actually addressing at the very least the title of the article. Like, I'm going to be a little mean here and point out that why do they need careers outside the MCU? Like, they get to be cultural icons, they get to be household names, and they get, more money than any person outside Hollywood will ever make in a lifetime. Forgive me, but a lot of this, oh, woe is them for they can't have a career outside the MCU thing, smacks to me of egoism, of like, where people care more about the IP than they care about me. Yes, that's the point, you assholes. Like, and again, I realize I'm being a bit mean here, but there is a fundamental truth here, and I wish it would get through all of Hollywood's thick skulls. It is not about you. The IP is usually more important if it's worthwhile to begin with. Like, people will remember, as an example outside the superhero genre, people will remember the character of Hannibal Lecter long after both Anthony Hopkins and Mads Mikkelsen are long dead. But that's a good thing because it means they did their job well. The job of the IP isn't to aggrandize you as a person. The job of you as an actor is supposed to be to serve the IP you're working with. So if the IP you're working with becomes a cultural icon, becomes a household name, and nets you a fuck ton of money, then you have very little room to complain. I'm sorry. Like, where I can only do this one thing that was very massively successful. Oh, woe is you. Most people don't ever get to the point of figuring out where their niche in life lives. And there are some actors who I have a lot more respect for who realize where their bread is buttered and they own the fact that they have a niche. Like John Delancey, who most famously played Q in Star Trek: The Next Generation. In nearly everything he is in, he plays a nigh omnipotent trickster character. But he likes playing that kind of character. It's kind of like why I don't understand the hatred for typecasting. If you're good at playing a certain type, you like playing a certain type, and people like seeing you play a certain type, who gives a fuck? Everyone wins. But my ego as an actor is tied into range and my ability to do other things. Well, sucks to be you. Most people only get one, like, not to be mean, but sometimes you only get the one wish. You get the one massive win that defines your entire career or your entire, life and whatever. And that's okay. Like, own your shit, please. And again, I realize I'm being mean, but that's where I'm sitting with this whole thing. It's like, well, we can't find a career outside the MCU, and I'm like, do you need one? You're a household name, you have all the money, and you know, are synonymous with a character that will well and truly outlive you. To most people, that's a win.
You're rambling.
Yeah, I know. Go ahead.
I understand your point. My kind of point. Well, let's get into this because I think if I read if we read through this, I'll be able to explain my point a little better.
Mm-hmm.
For the last 15 years, purists and cinephiles have been arguing out whether or not the Marvel Cinematic Universe is the beginning of the end to cinema as we know it. Modern day titans like Scorsese and Quentin Tarantino fully agree that effects-driven superhero spectacle has been determined to the art form as a whole. Okay, Don, before you start, may I?
Please, go.
Okay. Well, one, I think Don and I can both agree it's not the end of cinema at all.
It's just a genre that the old guard doesn't understand, and that somehow is fucking apocalyptic in their minds.
Right. And now, and I've made my thoughts on Martin Scorsese. I agree to the point that at least lately, the superhero movies or comic book movies, whatever you want to call them, although I'm sure there's a certain difference there, regardless, have started to care more about spectacle than actual story. It, like Don has said many times, it's more of a quality issue that is beginning to take focus now.
Yeah, but as much as you can say that about the superhero genre, you can literally say that about every genre at some point in their tenure.
Agreed. I agree on that. I'm not trying to. I'm trying to lay out the foundation here. However, I find it somewhat ironic and hypocritical of Quentin Tarantino, as he had mentioned before that he wanted to do a Luke Cage superhero movie some time ago. Granted,
did he seriously?
Yeah, I could totally see him doing that. By the way.
And just like that, the last vestige of a leg that he had to stand on evaporated into thin freaking air.
But how is I want to hold judgment on that just simply because I don't know the full context. And again, effects-driven superhero spectacle. I could agree to that to some point when it is focused entirely on the spectacle instead of the anything else. I can understand that. But I will disagree wholeheartedly with it being said that it is a detriment to the art form of filmmaking. It is not, because there are amazing superhero films that are better shot, better looking, better made, better scored, better acted than a lot of prestige or whatever the fuck other films that have come out in the last 2 or 3 decades.
Remember the Karl Urban Dredd movie?
Oh, dude, that is fucking awesome.
Yeah, like that's a
And
really
I
great
also want to like
example.
some.
Go ahead.
I want to see Kick-Ass just given like it has as dark and gritty as it is actually a very colorful film. Hello, Sokotano Gaming.
I mean, I would add Joker. Joker is one of the examples, but it only somewhat
Mm-hmm.
counts because I imagine that if you brought up Joker to Martin Scorsese, he would just go, "Well, yeah, it's only good because it pilfers my aesthetic," which is wrong because while the style and aesthetic of Joker comes from Martin Scorsese, specifically King of Comedy, the heart and soul of Joker comes from Killing Joke.
Yeah. And I also want to mention. I'm always going to mention this movie because it is a well-crafted movie in both story and
Mm-hmm.
cinematography and stuff like that. The Crow from 1994, I believe.
And speaking of like early 2000s, late 90s superhero movies that were way ahead of their time, V for Vendetta actually managed to somehow be better than the comic it's based on. To the point that for a bunch of Anglo asshats like me who don't have a background in Guy Fawkes Day, V for Vendetta single-handedly makes us mark the 5th of November. And I swear to God, every year I watch V for Vendetta on November the 5th, and it gets more and more fucking prescient as time goes by. Unfortunately.
Right. Okay, I want to really read the comments of sometimes you just wrote here. You guys care about what happened to Nick Murphy because he basically treated little children low in pre-K elementary school. Where they have a book which is about homosexuality, which has photos of different types of sex.
Oh right, the guy that Blizzard called out because he was a professional video gamer, that guy. I was thinking of covering that, but I couldn't find any good articles on it. I will have to look and maybe we'll cover it next week.
I mean, to be fair, like young kids like that, they don't really have any type of urges like that. So I don't know. Activision, not Blizzard. Activision.
Well, they're the same company now.
Ah,
Acti- Acti-
all the articles
Activision Blizzard is a thing.
are saying he's a homophobe. Okay.
Like I said, I will do my due diligence next week and we will see about covering it because I know it is a I know it is a topical story. It just so happened that by the time it rolled around, this week was already full. And in all honesty, I think next week is also already full. But like I said, I will do my due diligence and see what we can finagle here.
Anyway, Don, do you have anything to say? Continue.
In relation to the whole Martin Scorsese thing.
Yeah, I guess the first part, the first paragraph that we read. Or
Okay, I know I've made this point before, but I will continue to make this point every time the Martin Scorsese thing gets brought up. Martin, and to some extent also Francis Ford Coppola, because I know he jumped on this bandwagon too, and so did Steven Spielberg, and so did several of the other like mainstay old guard directors. The only thing separating comics or superhero based media and you is pretension. Because here is the sick little thing that you guys have allowed yourself to forget. The movie industry, the concept of cinema started literally as a carnival attraction called the Cinematograph. And I know at least some of you know that because Francis Ford Coppola specifically referenced it in his version of Bram Stoker's Dracula. So the only difference between superhero movies and you, to a large degree, superhero movies are self-aware enough and honest enough with themselves to know that they are basically a glorified attraction. Martin Scorsese and all the rest of the egotistical old guard film snobs have allowed themselves to believe that there is some magical separation between the original, Carnival cinematograph and themselves. That simply isn't the case. The only thing that's gotten more sophisticated is the resources you have at your disposal, and therefore the stories you're able to tell with it. But that doesn't change the fact that at the end of the day, movies are, and always have been, a glorified carnival attraction. That doesn't mean that they are invalid or inferior or anything. In fact, it means maybe you shouldn't use glorified carnival attraction or glorified amusement park ride as though it's a slur, Martin. Maybe you should have at least the tiniest fraction of humility to remind yourself that all movies are basically glorified carnival attractions at the end of the day. And maybe there isn't such a massive gulf between people like you and people like, Kevin Feige, and certainly not between you and Todd Phillips. Anyway, moving on.
Right. Brand is most definitely bigger and more important than the people who star in it, and it hasn't gone unnoticed that Tom Holland, Chris Hemsworth, Chris Evans, and even Robert Downey Jr. have struggled to find success out of the MCU's confines. With that in mind, the New Yorker's scathing piece on the franchise has thrown up some serious sentiments. Okay, hold on. I know you got some things straight on, but I honestly, again, I would say Chris Hemsworth actually and Chris Evans, even to a lesser degree, have actually found some, but actually, like they're pretty great actors. And I'm not against Tom Holland or Rob Van They're good actors too. And I've looked at stuff that they've been in before and after the MCU. The the biggest issue I see is more so again a kind of quality thing with those things. You know, that's about it. Like Tom Holland and Uncharted, I honestly think he could have been a good one if people actually wanted to make an Uncharted movie instead of Spider-Man in Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
That's effectively what Tom Holland was. Robert Downey Jr. Again, just like if he got working with directors like Guy Ritchie or
that was before that was before the MCU got kicked off.
I'm aware of that. I'm just saying, like, they really should get a third one. He deserves to end it and have a
Yeah, I agree. If nothing else, I want the third Robert Downey Jr. Sherlock Holmes because that is a very interesting take on Sherlock Holmes, and it deserves a capstone to its trilogy.
How you doing, Dranko? We're just covering a stupid article. Same old thing. We'll be on. But yeah, again, it kind of all really boils down to quality of the product, I guess.
Well, and here's the other thing, and this is why this is related to something I mentioned a little earlier. The reason why so many of the attempts by the MCU actors outside of their respective IPs doesn't work is we no longer really live in the age of the movie star. We live in the age of the IP being more important than the movie star. two, part two of that though, is so many of the choices these actors make outside of the MCU are basically almost intended to be anti-MCU movies. Like they deliberately play against type, and that might be part, and that's probably also part of why they don't succeed, because if the audience wants you to play variations on your classic theme and you deliberately spite them by only doing pretentious Oscar bait schlock, Chris Evans, no wonder the pretentious Oscar bait schlock is going to do less well than the Captain America movies. Not to mention that pretentious Oscar bait schlock always does less well than blockbusters, because pretentious Oscar bait schlock does basically define itself as the anti-blockbuster movie, and you can't deliberately spite everything people like about a certain kind of movie and expect them to still show up for you. It does. It's the same old logic of, if we deliberately spite our audience and our fan base, they'll still show up because they're a bunch of cretins who are tabula rasa. No, no, they won't. And you guys don't get to complain when, what was that movie that Chris Evans was in? The Lighthouse, I think. Was
No,
that
that
him?
was no, that was Robert Pattinson.
There was some freaking like sea shanty type movie that Chris Evans was in, and I can't remember the name of it. But he was really upset that it didn't do well, and he was basically saying, "Woe is me! I can't get a job outside of Captain America." And it's like, one, why would you want one? You're already a household name. You already have more money than anyone would be able to spend an entire lifetime. You already are one of the most recognizable actors in Hollywood. What exactly do you need? What more do you need? You've already won the game. But more to the point, he wanted to be taken seriously as a serious drama actor, quote unquote. And what he didn't seem to realize was, number one, most people don't want the serious, quote unquote, the quote unquote serious, pretentious dramas that Hollywood seems to think is so much more intellectual than blockbusters. And number two, if you're playing the exact opposite of Captain America and people like seeing you as Captain America, then surely it really isn't that hard to figure out why it failed. But
Although I
anyway,
will
moving
say he
on.
was. I mean, he can play a villain pretty well. I've seen him play a few good villains, specifically in The Gray Man on Netflix. I mean, it's not a great movie, but he was fun.
I've never seen it, so I don't know one way or the other.
All right,
It, yeah, moving
going
on.
on. Okay.
Yeah,
Reflecting on how
moving on.
Marvel makes reflecting on how Marvel makes stars and not the other way around. One unnamed agent remarked that an alarming number of the comic book conglomerate's biggest names have tried and failed to replicate their success elsewhere. Again, I chalk that up to the actors and the agents choosing properties or movies that don't don't live up to good standards.
Yeah, they they want to be taken seriously as niche art house pretentious actors, and the audience wants to see them as whatever superhero they are famous for. Like, and this is why this mostly doesn't apply as much to Robert Downey Jr., because Robert Downey Jr. is a case where he kind of molded the character to himself rather than the other way around. Now, granted, it worked because the gulf between Tony Stark and RDJ really wasn't that far to begin with. Like, he was made to play that role in the same way as, if they ever let Henry Cavill play freaking Superman, it would have gone over like gangbusters. They just never bothered. Um, But point being, it seems it, and this is why I have no real empathy for this argument of, oh, won't you feel so bad for the Marvel actors? They can't have a career outside of the IPs that they're known for. And it's like, one, why would you need a career outside of it? You're already a household name. You've already got more money than God. You've already, you've already won the game. Why do you need to keep pushing? Two, if you're going to go out of your way to be a pretentious, pseudo-intellectual, artistic blowhard, don't be surprised when you get treated like one. And number three, maybe you should have a little bit more respect for that IP that is putting food on your table and not treat it as just a stepping stone until I can make the movies I want to make. Maybe you should put in the effort to give the best performance you can in the IP that actually nets you both fan appeal and money, and fuck the pretentious pseudo-intellectual Oscar bait dramas. You don't need them, and nor do they need you.
Okay. It's actually from, I believe this is taken from the, actually, I don't know. I guess from the region, I guess. It's actually surprising me how almost none of them have careers outside of the Marvel universe. The movies don't work. Look at all the ones Robert Downey Jr. has tried to do. Look at Tom Holland, then bomb after bomb after bomb. And I mostly chalk that up to a quality thing of those movies that they've done.
And again, the difference between the way Hollywood worked in the 80s and the way Hollywood works now is prior to the modern era, you did sell the movie star, but even then back then you would have movie stars choose roles based on how well it fit their persona, their IP, their brand, if you like. They didn't go out of their way to deliberately spite what people wanted to see them in. Whereas now, the IP is at the very least slightly more important than it was previously, where it's not Chris Evans that sells tickets, it's Captain America. It's not Benedict Cumberbatch that sells tickets, it's either Sherlock or Doctor Strange, depending. And so on it goes. To the point that Chris Hemsworth is basically the only one that's been able to make even a half-decent career outside of the MCU, and that's because he chooses movies very similar to his, Thor brand, so that when you see him, you can go, oh, that's the guy from Thor doing things that make sense for the guy from Thor to do. Hence, why he's at least moderately successful. Now, granted, he's not great at picking them, which is why he was in. He was the male, gender swapped version of Janine in the Ghostbusters 2016, and nobody who chose that movie made it out well. But he's allowed to pick the occasional bomb. Whereas people like Chris Evans go out of their way to try and be pretentious and basically treat the larger IPs as, this is just something I'm doing to pay the bills until I can make the movies I want to make. Has it ever occurred to you that maybe you should want to make the movies people like and want to pay for, instead of being an egotistic little shit? Anyway, moving on.
Not only that, but
Dragon Turtle. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, sorry. I got distracted, so that's on me. Not only that, but Academy Award winning Taika Waititi and Chloe Zhao were then dragged into the discourse with another agent lamenting that they worry for the state of the industry and such top talent can only tell stories with their unfiltered imaginations when Marvel Studios is footing the bill. Okay, I have a few things to say. I'm sure you're but may I?
Go ahead, by all
Okay.
means.
Yeah. Well, okay. One, I like Taika Waititi. Again, I will kind of always make the argument that I think his more original stuff is better than his Marvel films, which that's been a big. But but what? Okay. So there is the issue of Marvel wanting to keep a very specific formula without letting much deviation from that, which kind of restricts certain creative directors. Um,
I'm not saying I'm not saying they're not allowed to want that Dragon Turtle. I'm saying it would be better for them, both in terms of success and in terms of personal enjoyment, probably, if they would be able to look at the dissonance between what they want in their egoism and what people want from them. Like I'm not saying become a drone and serve the public and only the public, because that would be silly. But what you could do is have enough self-awareness to go, okay, let me examine why I want the legitimacy of a serious Oscar bait drama that spites popular opinion, and or why is it I'm more successful in uh, in things people actually want to watch. It's less of a, oh, how dare you for wanting things, blah 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 blah, and more of a, it seems like most of their desires are born out of a pretentious level of hipstery artistic egoism rather than anything resembling a rational argument. And a lot of their problems could be resolved by having a little humility and a little self-awareness. It's less of a, it annoys me that they want other things, and more of a egoism versus self-awareness thing. I guess that's why it pisses me off, because a sane person would look at the, the gulf between what they, what they want in like the narrow egotistical sense and what people want from them, and look and go, okay, why is there such a discrepancy here? Am I possibly in the wrong for have I fully examined why I want things and so on? Like that's what I'm saying more than anything. Anyway, moving on.
Yeah, I got one. No worry for the film industry, because if you're Chloe Zhao and you want to tell a story on a big canvas, mostly you're limited to try and tell it on a canvas of a big superhero. It's a pair of golden handcuffs. Okay, so again, I think
You
one,
want to
in
go,
order
or you
to
want me to
really
go
be a
first?
director, I'll start it off, and then I think you can make my disjointed points make sense.
Okay.
A lot of directors who I won't argue are, I will not argue that are good directors, that are talented. But the issue, I think, also comes down to whether or not, one, they respect the source material, two, understand it, and three, are capable of translating it from adaptation.
Mm-hmm.
And in the case when you mentioned Chloe Zhao, I think Don and I both agree that he was a good pick for Eternals, just because he's very much dumbed down. And again, I'm also willing to point out that might not have been entirely his fault on the fact that, again, Marvel has that, the studios have those like big mandates and stuff that really limit a director. So I'm not going to put the blame solely on her, but
But even
it was
but
clear.
even then, a good director can make it work, like Sam Raimi did, like James Gunn did, like the Russos did, and so on.
Fair point. But yeah, please take that.
But what the angle I was gonna go was slightly different. But the angle, because the angle I was gonna go is, oh no, how dare we be forced to treat comic book genre or superhero genre like it's equal to every other fucking genre in the universe. Again, it's this underlying sense of egoism, nihilism, and spite that bugs me. Rather than have some self awareness and go and look and be like, okay, so many people like superheroes. Why do they like them? Is there something more here that I'm not seeing? You go, the masses are so primitive and myopic and childish and derp derp. There's obviously nothing valuable about superheroes, but I suppose I have to make a paycheck, so I will. It's this belittling of the genre as though it's like, this is only what I'm doing until something better comes along or something like that. Like that's what pisses me off. Rather than see superhero movies as an opportunity to um to draw a picture, to draw on that big canvas, to draw on a scale that most other genres can't sustain. You see it as, oh, I am being forced to play in this kiddie sandbox of superherodom. It's like, one, who elected you the arbiter of what art is and isn't? And two, would it kill you to maybe see where other people are coming from and not belittle and invalidate them? Three, you can tell a good story with superheroes just as easily as you can tell it with any other fucking genre in the universe. Because it's not the material's fault if you fail with the material. It's your fault for not knowing how to use the material. Also, here's another thing. If your style of creativity can only function when it's completely unfettered with no rules and no restrictions, again, I'm going to be a little bit mean here and say maybe you don't have actual creativity, because here's the thing about actual creative people. Actual creative people can operate within a structure, a restriction. Doesn't mean you don't doesn't mean you have to become a drone and, treat art like it's a 9 to 5 job or something. But if your artistic sensibilities only function when they are completely unfettered, and even then, most people don't actually enjoy what you offer when you're completely unfettered. Maybe you're just not all that creative, because truly creative people have been known to be able to take the restrictions and roll with the punches, or even some of the time putting some level of logical restrictions on a setting or on an IP or on your creative juices can sometimes lead you to ideas that you wouldn't come up with otherwise. Like this is, and I'm gonna use Brainstormer and myself as an example. This is one of the things I excel at, and why I'm so obsessive about world building and in-universe logic. Because when I and Brainstormer can back me up here, or he can tell me I'm full of shit if he thinks I'm full of shit. When I see something, when I see something missing in a creative idea, the way I usually try to figure it is by asking in-universe logic or world building questions, like, okay, how does this power work? How do these characters' relationships work, etc., etc. And in so doing, I might be the asshole. In fact, I usually am the asshole. But most of the people I've ever creatively bounced off with, and Brainstormer's the example, have have in many cases found my insistence on applying some level of in-universe logic to things helpful, and sometimes even leads them to ideas they wouldn't have thought of otherwise.
I both respect and despise you for it.
I know. I
I respect
to quote
and
to
for the
quote Dogberry from Much Ado About Nothing, I am an ass, though it be not written down, forget not that I am an ass.
and for context, I respect him in the regard that it does help me create a more well-rounded universe in writing stories and stuff. But I despise him because it always makes more work for me.
Mm-hmm.
Alright. Anyway, last sentence, and then we can move on.
Mm-hmm.
There are always two sides to every argument. But those who view the MCU as the enemy of celluloid bring up evidence. Fuck you, man.
Again, a lot of this idea seems to come from, oh no, you mean we actually have to cater to what our audience actually wants? Oh, woe is us for being enslaved to the will of people who actually give us their money and give us their, fan loyalty and stuff. So fucking nihilistic, pseudo-intellectual, and pretentious. I hate that shit so much.
Yeah. Okay. You sent this one, right?
I believe so.
Yeah, it's from globalvillagespace.com or GBS Entertainment. Marketing the Flash, Batman, TV spots, no Ezra Miller, written by Hugh Steph and published June 7th, 2023.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm really say about that. The Flash, can Ezra Miller stay out of trouble? No, he cannot.
The person is insane, and even with regards to, even without taking all the IRL drama into account, his version of the Flash was not well liked to begin with. I heard a lot of derogatory names for his version of the Flash. I heard Twink Flash. I heard Autistic Flash. I heard Spurg Flash. I heard Male Feminist Flash, which is the one I like probably the best. I even heard some people referring to him as Sheldon Cooper Flash. So even without all the bullshit, his version of the Flash is really not well liked.
Which I find insulting to Sheldon Cooper.
I mean, a bit. Although the later seasons of Big Bang Theory did a number on him all their own.
Right, fair enough. Yeah. Anyway, moving on.
Mm-hmm.
In late August 2022. Sorry, I'm not gonna lie, folks. I'm a little tired. So my mind's a little slow right now. Ezra Miller met with Warner Brothers film chairs Micah DeLuca and Pamela Abdi. Did I say the name wrong? I'm sorry. I'm just like I don't do names. I'm terrible.
He fails at the most English sounding names possible. He can't do names very well.
Miller had been attached to the Flash $200 million feature since 2014. However, the actor had been plagued by legal and personal troubles, including a string of arrests and bad headlines. A few weeks earlier, Miller apologized for the behavior, citing complex mental issues. No shit.
Again, all of that IRL stuff definitely didn't help matters, But I would say even more important than all the IRL shenanigans is simply the fact that he doesn't appear to have that much talent, and the fact that the version of the character he was playing in the DC universe he was playing it in was not well liked to begin with.
And I also want to point this out. This movie, like everything that we've seen of it in the trailers and stuff, it doesn't feel earned at all. None of it feels earned. That's also a thing.
No, and that was never the point. The point was, oh shit, people negatively react to the Man of Steel and BVS, so we need an in-universe reboot button. And they kept pushing it back and pushing it back and pushing it back because there was more and more stuff they needed to retcon. So they needed to save their in-universe reboot button for the basically kill all the birds with one stone logic.
Anyway, you know,
Yep.
uh, question on everyone's mind was whether Miller could stay out of trouble long enough for the Flash to safely enter theaters. 10 months later, the answer appears to be yes. Miller has not only stayed out of the headlines, but the answer is nowhere to be found in the press as the film sprints toward its June 16th release date.
See that, but the problem you have there is that's actually more telling than anything else, because he either gets in trouble or doesn't appear at all. He didn't he didn't ever at any point make any positive headlines, and that's basically what you'd have to do in order to undo all the bullshit that he pulled. Either the in-universe bullshit of his Flash isn't particularly well liked regardless, or the out-of-universe bullshit of Ezra Miller thinks he's the twink version of Rasputin, for some freaking reason. But point being, like you can't just have somebody go away for long enough and think, well, I guess people will forget about this because people are tabula rasa, right? No, even without all the real world stuff, because there's a sizable portion of the fan base that doesn't pay attention to any of that shit. The DC universe that Flash exists in and that version of the character himself are not well liked, especially given that James Gunn has come out and basically all but said all the stuff you actually like about this universe we're not keeping, and we might end up keeping some of the stuff you didn't like. And rather than be respectful and humble about the changes they're making and be a little bit more cautious in braving the waters of fan outrage, James Gunn has a tendency to not stop running his fucking mouth about the whole Henry Cavill thing and deliberately spiting the fan base at every freaking turn. Also, his DC slate makes no freaking sense. We've already covered that on the channel several times. But yes, not only are you rebooting the universe in the most disrespectful and spiteful to the fan base way possible, which was completely unnecessary. They were already slowly but surely course correcting with things like Black Adam, Shazam, Suicide Squad 2, and so on and so forth. Um, but also, the thing you're replacing it with basically makes no one happy, because you've got the people who want the normie characters who are unhappy with all the James Gunnisms, and then you've got people like me who wish that they would leave the big characters alone for a little while and actually build some of the more interesting characters and give them the spotlight for 5 minutes. But yeah, and ultimately there's also almost no interconnectivity with any of the things that James Gunn is doing, either to each other or to the overall arcing idea of Gods and Monsters. So the new slate is basically, we're going to throw things at the wall and see what sticks. Also, small print, we're going to spite the fan base at every turn. So even without all this other drama, a lot of people are very annoyed at DC right now, and it's somewhat telling that rather than sell the Flash on Ezra Miller or even on the future of DC, you sold it on, we press ganged Michael Keaton into coming back. He's not the same version of Batman because we're not actually setting it in the Tim Burton universe, but never mind.
Anyway. Mother, do you hear anything in the background? That is some asshole outside firing off fireworks. If some jackass decided to fucking light up a mortar.
It's freaking June. What are people like? Wait a month. Seriously, guys. What the fuck?
You know worst part is it's raining where I'm at. What the fuck?
Why would you? Okay, that is stupid. Why would you set off fireworks in rain? Not only is that just inherently stupid, it might actually be dangerous. If any of the pyrochemicals from the fireworks mix with the rain and end up raining back down on you, you could get chemical burns from that shit.
It's a light sprinkle, but honestly, they're doing it now. That's on that. They deserve it, honestly, if they're doing it. To be fair, so. They're touting Star. The studio is so focused on the film itself, hyping it to perhaps unrealistic levels. CEO David Zaslav and DC Studios CEO co-head James Gunn have publicly said the feature is among the greatest superhero movies of all time. No, that's just PR bullshit, I'm sure.
Honestly, here's the other problem with The Flash. It seems like Warner Brothers has been slowly but surely paying attention to every superhero movie that's been successful in the last 5 years, especially with related to multiverse stuff, and they're just copying. Like, this is literally just Batman No Way Home at this point. It feels like they ripped off No Way Home, and rather than focus on the Flash, they're focusing on Michael Keaton. So a better title for this movie would literally be Batman No Way Home, honestly.
This has sparked the news head shaking from some at Warner's who question the wisdom of setting such high expectations.
Yeah, someone at Warner Brothers knows what the fuck they're talking about. It's stupid to hype things to oblivion because, okay, one, here's a question. Is this actually going to be a reboot button? I.e., are we actually going to see the foundations of the next iteration of the DC Universe, i.e., the James Gunn incarnation? Or is this some half in, half out situation where it's half stuff left over from, like, Snyderverse, 2013 through 2020 DC, and it's not going to have any impact on the coming slate. Because here's the thing: if you wanted to do Flashpoint as an in-universe reboot button and an in-universe excuse to basically have a mulligan for all the stupid shit you did and keep the shit you didn't fuck up, if you want to do that, there's a way you have to do it. You have to basically have the next version of Batman, not Michael Keaton, because Lord knows you're not going to be able to pay enough for him to stay on for more than one movie. But what you want to do is actually have the next iteration of Batman be the one that Barry spends most of the movie with, so that when the universe goes back to normal after the events of Flashpoint and it turns out to be the new iteration, we have some basis for the character. Same thing with Superman v Supergirl and everything. Like, the way you would want to do this is have the original, or have whoever gets cast as the next Superman, because for some reason it can't be Henry Cavill, be the Superman of this new universe, so that when everything gets said and done, aspects of the universe that Barry just spent, 2.5 hours in, get brought over to the new one, and then boom, you have the segue over to the Gunverse, I guess, if you want to call it that. But instead, it appears that this movie isn't going to be canon to the Snyderverse, but it's also not going to be canon to the Gunverse, and not going to have any impact on what's next for DC. So even as a in-universe mulligan button, it's not functioning in the way you need an in-universe mulligan button to do. It also doesn't work as a send-off to the Snyderverse because you noticeably replaced Henry Cavill with Supergirl rather than just being smart enough to leave Kryptonian shit alone for 5 minutes. Because that's the thing. If you honest and for truly have some miserable vendetta against Henry Cavill, that's fine. But you can't then go on to cite a whole bunch of Kryptonian shit. Either show us who the next one's gonna be so we have time to like him, which, given that Superman Legacy already seems like a clusterfuck from the ground up, you need that. Or have Henry have one last hurrah and then get retconned out of existence in the Flashpoint scenario. But instead, you didn't leave Kryptonian shit alone. You didn't cite the next, you didn't Easter egg in the next iteration, and you didn't give Henry a send off. What you did was offer us a version of Supergirl, which, while that doesn't necessarily have to be SJW, it's going to come off as very SJW regardless, because we all know that wokeness or no wokeness, you're deliberately spiting the fan base, which is in and of itself kind of a secondary hallmark of wokeness, especially if the character you use to spite the previously established canon happens to be a demographic that SJWs like to play victim over. Like, say, having this Earth's Kryptonian be a version of Supergirl instead of Superman, because we don't talk about Henry. No, apparently. And yes, I did just make an Encanto reference. Sue me.
Back.
Mm-hmm.
That's super fan out the window. Anyway, it can't be the
Yeah.
same.
Go ahead. Sorry, I was reading. I was reading one of Dragon Turtle's comments. Yeah, Dragon Turtle. In theory, a James Gunn universe does sound interesting. If they could just decide whether they wanted him to go full James Gunn or whether they wanted him to go full normie, instead of having it be somewhere in the middle, which makes no sense to anyone. Mm-hmm.
No. Alright, Clara.
Mm-hmm.
It can't be the video telling you it's good. Your friends have to tell you it's good. One insider. The first reviews, which dropped June 6th, are solid, but not the type of notices received by The Dark Knight, considered the greatest film of the genre. The Flash currently sports 72% on Rotten Tomatoes, good enough to beat Joker, Warner's 2019 Oscar-winning $1 billion hit, which has a 69%.
Okay, fuck you to hell and back for mentioning that, because here's the thing. Every motherfucker on this planet knows, whether they be left, right, center, libertarian, authoritarian, whatever. Every motherfucker on this planet knows that the only reason why Joker has a 60 instead of the mid to high 90s that it should have is because critics had a visceral, inexplicable, irrational hate boner for that movie, in defiance of the fact that it's one of the best movies in the entire freaking genre, and in defiance of the fact that it's basically the best Scorsese movie that Scorsese never actually made. In fact, it's better than most of them, but never mind. So the fact that The Flash beat Joker on Rotten Tomatoes tells me nothing other than the fact that maybe the critics didn't have quite as aggressive a hate boner for it. But even then, we know that critics hate fan service. We know that critics hate anything being for the fans and not marching to the Pied Piper tune of themes. And we know that critics have a visceral hatred for the superhero genre in general. So whether it's good or bad, I don't really trust the critics as far as I could kick them. And bear in mind, I'm physically disabled and unable to kick anyone. So, whatever. Mm-hmm.
The studio is facing several other headwinds that are affecting its projected opening. So 70 to 75 million. Some feel movie fatigue is real, and so is the perception that these next few DC movies, including August's Reveal and December's Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, are less urgent because Warner's is relaunching a slate of entirely new movies with new actors to inhabit the superhero roles under the aegis of DC Studios heads Gunn and Peter Safran.
Mm-hmm. Dragon Troll asterisk realism as we define it, not realism as it would actually exist. But anyway, moving on.
I don't really have anything to say to that thing prior, to be honest.
No, I didn't either. That's why I was looking in the comments.
It's unclear how much is perception and how much is reality. Both executives have said some actors from the current universe could persist, and one who seems most likely is Zolo Medvedina, whose character Blue Beetle has close ties in the comics with the Gold, saying that it's Ted Cord, not Jaime Reyes. Gunn and Safran are planning their own Booster Gold show, and the possible Blue Beetle could appear in it, depending on Beetle's reception this summer.
Once again, the problem with the Gunverse appears to be that it amounts to nothing, and it's pitched as a Gods and Monsters thing, which neither follows the Gods and Monsters storyline from the comics, nor the actual concept of Gods and Monsters, which you could very easily do because there's a bunch of characters who are de facto gods and de facto monsters in the DC universe. So, meh.
Right. So far, Warner's has sidelined Miller in the press in favor of director Andy Muschietti. Same name, I'm sorry.
Yes, the guy most famous for doing It Chapter 1, a couple of years ago. Which I like him as a director, don't get me wrong. I still think that this looks like a glorified XP of No Way Home starring Batman. And I dislike that it spites the fan base at every freaking turn. And Ezra Miller is not a likable version of the Flash, regardless of all the IRL shit he got up to. So, I don't think if Andy Muschietti manages to pull out a win here, I will literally eat one of my hats, but I really don't think that's possible.
Yeah.
Moving on.
So far, producer Barbara Muschietti, I don't know, and Supergirl actor Sasha Calle as ambassadors for film. Honestly, that's probably a smart thing to do.
What is a smart thing to do?
Have the director, a producer, and another actor who isn't the main one be like the ones talking about the film in press.
Yes, but in some ways they're simply just not going to be able to get out of that hole because the actress who they focused on instead of Miller was the actress who plays Supergirl, which again, the smart thing to do would have been ignore Kryptonian shit entirely if you're not going to either have Henry come back or introduce us to the new guy. But it really helps no one that instead of doing either of those two sensible things, you replaced Superman with Supergirl, which already is going to get a certain percentage of people inflamed regardless. And it's not even a Supergirl people remember because she's not blonde. She has the aesthetics of the alternate universe Supergirl, who was the daughter of Clark and Wonder Woman, and yet she's still called Kara Zor-El, which is Clark's cousin, who should be blonde. So again, we wind up in a situation where none of these creative decisions jive together or make sense, and several of them are likely to piss off various varieties of people. So even the smart decision of let's focus on the Supergirl actor is probably going to bite them in the ass at least a little bit.
Okay. On June 12th, Miller is expected to attend the film's premiere, which will likely be branded as fan events, one where stars walk the carpet but answer no questions from journalists. The studio previously has experience with such hybrid events. In April 2022, it held a New York event for Fantastic Beasts with the gift of Dumbledore, which was mired in its own controversies with author J.K. Rowling, the casting Johnny Depp, and even Miller, who was arrested in Hawaii days before the event.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Having Ezra go to the event and not be able to answer questions is in and of itself kind of weird and creepy. Because when people when they see actors at a premiere want to ask them questions. It's normal to ask them questions, and that's when actors are allowed to give interviews and stuff. So having him go but not answer questions is in and of itself a little weird. It's kind of like it's sadly enough, this is where my brain immediately went. It's like how in Revenge of the Sith, the Jedi Council made Anakin a member of the Jedi Council, but didn't make him a master, and he was completely defrocked by that because that was the first time in the history of the entire Jedi Order that happened. Well, it's the same kind of thing here. Either don't have them go to the premiere, or have them answer questions. And in all honesty, you'd be better off having him answer questions because then he can grovel and do the apology tour thing instead of having him be in this weird limbo space where he's there, but he basically just exists there and isn't allowed to interact with anyone because we're too afraid of backlash. Well, having him be there and not answer questions is also going to probably spark its own kind of backlash. It's going to demonstrate to anyone who cares to see it that Warner Brothers is going out of its way to protect Ezra Miller for the sake of their own investment, which if they're the people who care about the IRL shit Ezra Miller has gotten up to, that's gonna piss them off because that's them holding Ezra Miller to a different standard than every other freaking human being in the universe. And people who don't care about the IRL stuff Ezra Miller has gotten up to are gonna be like, why isn't the alleged main character of the movie allowed to talk? And the people who both don't really care about either but find Ezra Miller annoying are just going to use this as fuel for, see, this is why he's creepy and weird and annoying. So again, this is a no-win scenario here again. Moving on.
Right. Okay. Ben Terrell, hey, at least she isn't black and talking every 5 minutes about how Kryptonians are immigrants and America needs to be more welcoming and embracing them to their way of life.
Yeah, but again, it's a no-win scenario, Dragon Turtle. Like it's plausibly amoral idiots all the way down, it seems.
That's touting the start. This studio has the most famous champions courting celebrities for advanced screening. Stephen King has seen it. As a rule, I don't care lots of superhero movies, but this one is special. It's heartfelt, funny, and eye-popping, included. So has Jaden Smith, best movie ever. He wrote on Instagram. Tom Cruise was also treated to an advanced screening at his home and then tweeted his review, but instead have liked it. In fact, the studio mounted what one person described as one of the more robust screening campaigns in recent memory, to go buzz with dozens of thousands seeing it.
Maybe I'm being mildly autistic here, but why the fuck should anyone care what random actors think about the movie, especially actors that aren't even in the movie? Like, it's very obvious this is Warner Brothers paying them off to say nice things, so it's not going to affect the on the ground PR excitement. It's not actors involved in the movie, so why do we care? And the random choices of actor are also kind of weird because a lot of people hate Jada Smith's guts for what she did to Will Smith and also what she did to Cleopatra. Um,
Jaden.
oh, the son. Most people don't even know who Jaden is. Like, okay, minor lie there because most people when they think of Jaden Smith think of the Karate Kid remake, which he was actually really really good in. But that's the last time he was ever relevant to like the public sphere at all. And Tom Cruise, we all know he's a Scientologist weirdo, so what the fuck does his opinion matter?
You know?
Yeah, moving on.
Other studios note the studio has been spending heavily on spots in particular trailers, running the ladder during the NBA playoffs. One executive Warner spent upwards of $14 million on the NBA alone, although that also included a spot for Barbie. They're spending huge shoes. This is a massive campaign, says the executive familiar with these rollouts. A Warner insider says the figure was lower.
Yeah, I hate to break it to you, Hollywood, but if your marketing isn't any good and the product you're selling isn't any good, no amount of war of attrition showing the ads everywhere is going to make people want to see it. In in fact, there's a good chance that if the movie itself doesn't look good and that the marketing isn't any good, it might desensitize people to wanting to go see it because they might be like, well, I was kind of interested in seeing The Flash, but these ads are annoying and they don't make the movie look good, so fuck it, basically. Because the logic is supposed to be the more ads we show to people, the more we'll eventually wear them down into wanting to see it. But if the ads aren't any good and the movie it's selling doesn't appear to be any good either, well, nerds. The only way that kind of ad campaign can work is if the ad campaign is really good or if the movie it's selling is really good. Preferably both. But if the movie is bad and the ad campaign is bad, you're just gonna piss off people and desensitize them to even wanting to tolerate you.
You know?
Yeah, moving on.
And if he can't bank on Flash to bring them in, he's hoping that Batman, one of the biggest superheroes in the world, can, as well as the nostalgia factor of a returning Michael Keaton. Both have been heavily profiled in the campaigns and team showed for a fan event in London last weekend. But essentially, sorry.
Go ahead.
Well, that was another article, paragraph. So,
Okay. Here's the thing. Even if Michael Keaton has the kind of fan cachet you're expecting him to have, which I'm skeptical of, by the way, marketing a Flash or Flashpoint movie based on him rather than on anything relating to the future of DC, the uniqueness of the movie, the actual nominal main character who is the Flash, just makes it seem disingenuous. And here's the other half of that. Like, there have been 5 or 6 different incarnations of Batman more iconic and more well liked than Michael Keaton since the '89 version. Like, I love the '89 version. Don't get me wrong. Like, I love Batman and Batman Returns. Don't get me wrong. I wore out the VHS of those two when I was a kid. But since Keaton, we have Kevin Conroy, the Batman that defined a generation. We have Christian Bale, the Batman that made superhero movies able to be serious dramas. We have um we have Batfleck, the Batman that realized the concept of the Batman probably the best. And we have the Robert Pattinson incarnation, who's probably in the best translated version of the Batman in years. So I'm sorry, but especially for like brainstormers age and younger, the myopic fanboyism for Michael Keaton just isn't there. Um, most people even my age, and mind you, again, I wore out the VHS for both Batman '89 and Batman Returns when I was a kid. Most people, when they think of Batman that are my age, think of Kevin Conroy before they think of Michael Keaton. Or if they think of Michael Keaton at all, they think of him as basically the prequel version, the prequel version of Kevin Conroy's incarnation. And there's a sizable percentage of normie, Batman fans who mostly know Batman from video games and crossover video games like the Arkham games and Injustice, and that was Conroy again. So whether you're talking about the hardcore people who grew up with it, whether you're talking about actual nerds, or whether you're talking about the frat bro normies who like playing video games, most people either think of Conroy, Bale, Batfleck, or Pattinson now. So, like, I don't think they're like people in their 40s or 50s or 60s might think of Michael Keaton when you say Batman, but even they were a crucial part of why Dark Knight was successful, or for what little success that the Snyderverse had, its success. And so, like, even the normies in their 40s, 50s, and 60s are probably at this point still more familiar with, at the very least, Bale, Affleck, and Pattinson than they are with Keaton. And there might be some nostalgia there, but here's the other third of this little canard issue. If you're gonna bring back Michael Keaton's Batman, you have to remember that Michael Keaton wasn't the only selling point of Michael Keaton's Batman. It was also what defined his incarnation of Batman was also the universe he existed in, which was the Burtonverse. So why is it that nothing in the trailer looks stylized in the vein of Burton, in the vein of the Burton universe? It's not just the actor that we like; it's the incarnation that we like. Again, for what little people so actively care about Michael Keaton. They like him as the actor, but they also prefer the Burtonverse, or at the very least, this would have been a good opportunity to blend the Tim Burton universe and the Batman animated series universe, because they are closely linked, and this would have been a perfect explainer as to the relationship between them. But no, you didn't even bother to do that. It's the same actor, but it's a completely new and different incarnation of the character. It's not the Burton universe incarnation or the '89 incarnation. It's a new version of the character who happens to be played by Michael Keaton, which is just annoying. Moving on, though.
Sorry, I also have to say this. And if they were doing Flashpoint, instead of casting Jeffrey Dean Morgan as Thomas Wayne, they should have done Michael Keaton for Ben Affleck.
Yeah, they could have done Michael Keaton as Thomas Wayne, which would have also been more in line with the comic, and it
And
would explain why he's not as good of a Batman, which he's not gonna be anymore because he's in his 70s.
was also the killer Batman, and Tim Burton Batman did kill people.
Well, he more just was apathetic to people dying of their own accord, I guess.
And
I don't think he actively killed people. I think it was more just if you're stupid enough to be on the if you're stupid enough to be standing outside the exhaust port of the Batmobile when I turned it on, and you're a criminal anyway, defa.
I don't know. Yes. Alright. But it's unclear if it's resonating having both Keaton and Ben Affleck as Batman. A strong comparison to ground trod by the successful Spider-Man No Way Home, unfairly as far as was to have originally arrived at theaters before that movie. And on the flip side, moviegoers can feel like they just recently saw a Batman movie, like they just recently saw a Batman movie in the form of Rob Pattinson's Batman released in 2022. They're not promoting Flash as a character because they can't. Marvel Studio executive says regarding not putting too much focus on Miller.
And again, even if you were to focus on Miller, his version of the character isn't well liked, and the universe he was coming from wasn't particularly well liked either. So this is one of those cases where you are fucked from the word go from like 5 different levels. But far be it from me to try to save Warner Brothers again from their own eating incompetence. Also, why didn't you have Todd Phillips be the new, be the Kevin Feige stand-in? Like, I like James Gunn and all too, but his version of the reboot doesn't sound all that interesting. I would have at least liked to have seen what Todd Phillips would have come up with. Or, of course, just stick with the Rock's plan, because it was also pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, moving on.
Normally, studios would have a movie stars blanket late night talk shows, but due to the writer's strike, those shows have shut down. That has been a blow to movies, but in the case of Flash, that may have proven to be advantageous. Miller isn't conspicuously absent from the shows, and co-stars don't have to field awkward questions about their troubled star. It was hurt. It has hurt everyone equally, says the rival exec, but in their case, it hurts them less. One bright spot for Warner's has been filmmaker Andy
Muschietti.
who is a favorite at the studio after the hit It films. Even if Miller's future with DC is an open question, Muschietti doesn't appear to be. He is the top choice to direct the Batman feature, The Brave and the Bold. Multiple sources tell Hollywood Reporter, so there is no script, and thus no formal commitment from the filmmaker until one materializes post-writer's strike.
Okay, I like Andy Muschietti. Why would you give him Batman the Brave and the Bold? That doesn't make any sense. Because if you're going the like 60s Brave and the Bold route, because that's what it's fucking called, then I don't think his style really lends it to that. And if you're going the darker, Son of Batman story arc, because Damian is in it for some fucking reason, it also doesn't really jive with his sensibilities. Now, granted, horror directors are really good at translating to other genres, so maybe I will be eating my words in 5 years or whatever. But that just seems like a really odd choice. It was like, oh, you're a big successful director, so you can make any movie successful. It's like, no, you have to pair the director with material that jives with their directing sensibilities, guys. It's not This really isn't that hard to figure out. But what the fuck do I know? I'm still wondering why you need to have two separate incarnations of Batman going at once, and why, for the life of anyone, you would start a new timeline with Damian Wayne instead of any of the other Robins that have existed throughout history. Especially considering that Damian has kind of a reputation for being an edgy little shit.
Anyway, moving on.
Yep.
Man. Well, I sent this. My Adventures with Superman official trailer, and I have some things to say about it. And we'll get into it.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I find it weird that it's moved to Adult Swim.
Yeah, because they want to do the kind of edgy adult cartoon thing they did with Harley Quinn with it. Because apparently you can't have serious action cartoons on a kids network anymore. Never mind that the 90s and 2000s had some of the greatest cartoons ever made that were more seriously minded action cartoons, but what do I know? I was only frickin' raised on them.
Right. Okay, let me. Okay. Yeah, we covered this briefly a few other times. Nothing really too much, to be honest, but yeah, it's official trailer, so let's get into it. I'm trying to think of something like banana wise.
I can't think of anything, so just banana.
Well, I have two things, but I'm not sure if they really work, to be honest.
Okay.
Super Banana or Kryptonite.
I think maybe just go with the regular banana.
Yeah,
We haven't done a regular banana in a while anyway, so yeah.
it's for the best.
Hmm?
It's for the best.
I like for the bananas to be at least somewhat topical. Damn it.
Fair enough. Okay. Anyway, yeah, let's banana.
Banana.
I can do this. I'm gonna hide my powers and be a normal man having a normal day. Hang on. Starting now. So,
Everyone thinks they know the Man of Steel, but you've never seen the.
Okay, I gotta play up a few things.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't dislike Clark's look.
Yeah, the actual character design is not bad.
For Clark, at least. I got something to say for someone else, but
Mm.
I hate the writing that I'm seeing here is a little weird.
The unnecessarily on the nose meta bullshit again.
Yeah. Like, don't get me wrong, I don't mind meta, I guess, commentary, but at least one, keep your character consistent, and two, it just, I don't know, it's jarring because I don't think it works for Clark as a character just overall.
It's a bit sarcastic and sardonic, which doesn't really jive with Superman.
Honestly, it would have made sense if, I don't know. I mean, okay. I know
Lois is usually the like streetwise sardonic sarcastic one.
yeah. But I also, okay, hold on. I want to go back a little bit. The art style kind of threw me for a loop a bit just because it's very flat.
Mm-hmm.
And also, I hate the design of Metropolis here.
It looks too normal.
Generic.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing about Metropolis is it's the city of tomorrow.
Specifically the city of the future in like the 1904 1905 World Fair sense.
Yeah. And there have been cities that I've like designed. It's just like it's weird to me that they're going with this. And don't get me wrong, I'm sure you can have like regular old buildings and certain.
It literally just looks like regular New York, though.
Yeah. Although to me, and I'm aware that Metropolis is supposed to be New York, but to me, I've always pictured it more similar to looking to like maybe Chicago or something.
Well, I mean, technically, both Metropolis and Gotham are supposed to be XPs for New York, even though also New York actually exists in the DC universe sometimes, which just that to me is silly. Like, if you're gonna rename cities and shit, just go with it. Like,
Commit to the bit.
Yeah, commit to the freaking bit, or don't bother. Like, seriously. Anyway.
Also, we bring this up all the fucking time, but my God, it's so bland in terms of like color
or art style, even. Like, guys, you can literally draw anything you can imagine, and this is the problem. We have more resources to create things now than we ever have before in human history. So the only conclusion I can draw for when things don't look creative is, therefore, given that you had all the resources you needed to make anything you want, your own creativity must be the problem. Or actually, your lack of creativity must be the problem.
Yeah. Also, this weird thing that I noticed, and I've seen this in a few other shows, is that the characters don't look like they really fit with the background.
No. Because the animators or the writers don't know how to use backgrounds properly to set a tone or create an atmosphere.
It's not even the background itself, it's more so the character shading, and I'm getting technical here, but like the character shading and stuff. Like, they don't look like, it looks like they're on a poorly made green screen.
Yep. Which, given that this entire scenario is animated, that shouldn't be possible, but here we are.
Yeah. Again, it's just like so many tiny little details that are kind of the thing that, like, you put them together, that's what's kind of throwing me off with it.
Death by 1,000 paper cuts.
I think I'm imagining that, man, and that's just... Okay. Anyway.
Banana.
Never seen the son of Jor-El like this before.
Who am I?
What was that?
Superman! I'd like to interview you for the Daily Planet.
Sorry, no comment.
Lois, these are the new interns. I want you to show them the ropes and
They can help me with the story. If we break this, we'll become real reporters.
Don't forget to pause.
Yeah, it was that 20 seconds, so...
Okay. You want to address the nitpick, or do you want me to address the nitpick, or we both can address the nitpick?
Depends, because I got like a few nitpicks.
Okay, I'm gonna address my nitpick first then. He's not the son of Jor-El. He's Clark Kent. Stop overemphasizing the Kryptonian origins, for the love of God.
I mean, I can understand it if he's going up against Kryptonians, sure, but yeah, I do agree on that.
Yeah, but this isn't Zod, or at least we don't think this is Zod talking, or Ursa, or Non, or any of those guys. It's the narrator is referring to him as the son of Jor-El rather than as Clark Kent. And again, it pisses me off.
the comedy that's been sprinkled around here is so. Well, one, it's basic. You know, it's basic bitch comedy. It's not funny, and it just again, it doesn't vibe with any. It's just not. It's not. It's not hitting.
Dragon Turtle, I would like to remind you that it's John Kent, Superman's son, that's supposed to be the gay one. But you're probably right. Some people will probably some people who are too normie to actually read comics will probably backlash on the grounds that wait, isn't he gay now? No. Don't get me wrong. I like the concept of the gay Superman. I mean, we sort of do that in the Lionhearted a little bit, but yeah, no, the normie journalists who don't care enough about the actual comics and just like the virtue signaling will probably get mad at this. But
Also, okay, I guess why I bring it up now, just because she is showing to be prominent here. Lois Lane. Her design, and a lot of people talk about it. I don't like it. For like three major reasons. One, it's too similar to various female characters that have been created for the last decade. So she looks very generic.
She also seems a little bit too eager to me. Like, am I completely off the base on that one? But Lois has always been the hard boiled journalist. She's always been the street smart, cynical one of the two. Like that's part of why it works to have them play off each other.
Yeah.
But here she's almost fangirling.
I was going to get into the personality in a bit. I just want to stick with the design first. Her short hair is, well, again, it's too, what's the word? Generic. I get, honestly, I don't mind. Lois Lane has always struck me as a tomboy.
Yeah, it's not entirely insane, and her design has gone through enough like period revamps over the years that it's not terrible.
But it's just the hair. Hold on, let me try and see if I can find a better image and close up of her. There we go. It's too short, I think. Like
it could at least have been shoulder length.
Yeah. Like that's honestly a lot of depictions of Lois Lane that I've seen myself that I'm cool with. But I don't know, it's also, and like her general design, like her, I guess, reporter uniform is not stylish. I say what you want about Lois, but she's stylish. She's got style. She's feminine.
She's not bitter. She's not an angry person. She does, like, yes, she's street smart. Yes, she's a bit cynical, at least relative to, the cinnamon roll that is Clark. But she doesn't let the world bring her down. Like for all the life endangering things she's gotten up to over the years, she's never once let it slow her down or even stop her for 5 minutes. Which is like Lois, at least as long as she's had a consistent personality, she's been a firebrand. She's been the actually tough girl, not the feminist approved tough girl who bitches about the patriarchy every 5 fucking minutes, but the actually, I have a goal, I am driven to accomplish said goal, damn the consequences sort of tough girl.
trying to think if I had anything else to say. We'll move on. I don't think so. So
Hmm.
again, all of this just feels very empty. I realize I've been saying a lot lately.
Hmm.
Hold on. Okay, there we go. Banana?
Banana.
This is the story of the century. Who is Superman?
Lois, how do you know what Superman is?
You think he's a plane?
It kind of looks like a bird.
My Adventures with Superman. 2-episode series premiere. Thursday, July 6th at midnight on Adult Swim.
It already came out. Now I refuse to watch that show. I'll be honest. I'm not going to review it.
We tried to review Batwoman and it almost killed us. We actually had a meaningless argument over Superman and Lois, so we probably shouldn't bother.
Yeah, it's weird how it's just so it's nothing really.
Hmm.
It doesn't do anything new. It doesn't.
The only thing that's even remotely new is the annoying meta. Everything is a joke. Everything is making fun of the IP bullshit. Like, people just don't know how to write comedy anymore or take IP seriously, it seems. Like, the only reason shows like this exist is to take the piss out of the IP for some fucked up reason. Anyway, on to the good thing.
Yeah, something that does meta commentary rather well and to take piss out of something, but also be genuine.
And yeah, genuine enough to actually develop its own world building and own interesting characters.
Oh, okay. So before Grand Trail from the trailer, it sort of looks like they made the black guy the comic relief. How much do you want to bet that they are way too much comedic relief and sort of use this type? I mean, that's Jimmy Olsen, to be fair, just overall.
Wait, they made Jimmy black?
They did that in live action, remember?
I didn't realize that was supposed to be Jimmy. Fuck.
I'm legitimately surprised you didn't because he had a camera and he actually had a hairstyle that was similar to Jimmy Olsen.
Well, far be it from me to once again expect Jimmy Olsen to be a freaking redhead.
Fair enough.
I'm mostly joking, but the let's race swap all the gingers is getting genuinely annoying.
Right. So yeah. This is the official trailer for the Venture Brothers. Radiant is the Blood of the Baboon Heart, which I believe is the finale movie that they are making because the show did get canceled. So,
but they took Joss Whedon's credo to heart. 7 seasons of the movie.
right. And yeah. I feel like there is something that we can do here. But
there's got to be a Venture Brothers oriented food stuff we can use. I don't know. I haven't watched enough Venture Brothers to know of any in jokes about food.
what about the Mighty Monarch? You say that?
No.
Right. I just think of banana just because like I cannot come up with anything. So
Sure. Just stick with the regular banana.
Yeah.
Banana.
Banana.
And going off the grid. Disappearance.
Where is Hank? We have to find him!
Preparation.
Doc, we got a huge problem with the new product. We're launching tomorrow.
Like a lot of animated movies that are continuations of TV shows, they did the thing where they upped the animation quality noticeably in the movie.
No, this seems pretty similar to the later seasons because they were getting a bigger budget increase. Although I can see what you mean, like some of the shadows and stuff seem a little more.
The colors seem a little bit more well-rounded. A couple of them seem darker, etc., etc.
Yeah. So yeah. I also found this out that apparently the whole 7 seasons only take place in universe 2 years.
This I did not know.
And I guess this movie, given how the last season ended, this might take immediately after the 7th season. So, and when did Venture Brothers come out again? That was
originally, I want to say it was the early 2000s, but yeah, I don't know.
So technically, they're stuck in like the early to mid 2000s. Hold on, I'm gonna look this up just because it's gonna bug me.
Then again, that means they never had to deal with the 2010s or 2020s, so maybe it was good.
I think we should also consider this is a really different world, kind of. Okay, 2003. So they're in 2005 then. So I do want to mention this before we continue. I don't have. So I kind of got late into the game in terms of being a fan of the Venture Brothers. I remember watching it when I was a kid on Adult Swim when I'd be able to stay up late at night. But I started watching more of it as I got older and stuff.
I didn't really get into it until I found out there was a Doctor Strange parody in it.
Dr. Orpheus.
Yes.
I have to ask, what do you think of him?
He is amusing, and he's actually a better Doctor Strange than Cumberbatch, which is sad.
Let's not forget the Order of the Triad, which is his super team.
I do really enjoy the Monarch as a villain. I have a soft spot for like comedically incompetent villains.
Ironically, I mean, yeah, he's a comedic incompetent, but I honestly think he could be a really given this like
he's not bad. I would put him on the same tier as like Dr. Draken. Like he's successful some of the time, and his plots actually make some kind of villainous sense.
Also, he's one of the few villains that we have seen that actually is in a loving relationship.
Yeah, Dr. Girlfriend.
Dr. and Mrs. the Monarch.
Oh, right, they did get married. Good for them. Yeah, good for you too.
Yeah, it was like first season, I think, or second season. I'm not too sure on that one, but it was pretty early on they got married.
I haven't watched ahead that far yet.
Hey, Chris, you are behind this shit. You are so fucking behind.
I know. Shush.
Actually, okay. Have you seen David Bowie yet?
I have not.
Yeah, you are behind as fuck. My God.
I didn't know David Bowie showed up at some point, but I'm looking forward to it now.
But yeah, only 20 seconds in. I'm fucking here for this.
Yeah, I am grateful that there is an IP that has gone unmolested by the long march of deconstruction and bullshit.
Well, okay. The thing I love about the Benzer Brothers, like in terms of its production thing, is it takes its time. Like it's not rushing to pump out a season every year. Like it takes years.
Better to do it well than fuck it up.
A statement we are very much living.
Hmm.
But yeah, shall we?
Banana.
I don't know.
We're launching tomorrow, gentlemen. Get to work.
Execution.
I'm in.
Aliens! Battle stations!
Betrayal.
Gentlemen, what can Arch do for you?
Conspiracy.
This is a threat against our very foundation. We must protect our collective.
Oh, Clancy. Oh, every time I hear your voice, it makes me happy.
Yeah, he's playing a villain called Red Death. Pretty badass villain, I'm not gonna lie.
That again, I just every time I hear Clancy Brown, I'm happy.
Well, okay.
I hope they bring Damien Darkblood back to Invincible at some point. I really like Damien Darkblood as a character.
But I will agree, like, yeah, it does look like for a movie budget animation, they really stepped up in terms of production because
Yeah, because the colors are more vibrant, the lines are more detailed. It's the usual thing they do when they make a movie based on a TV show. They make the movie feel like it is a bigger adventure than the average, villain of the week story that the show would do. Hell, even Big Picture Show for Ed, Edd n Eddy kind of did that a little bit.
I'll agree with
Although, speaking of that, that is how you end a show. Although, I will never forgive Danny Antonucci that he didn't at least attempt to answer the "What's under the hat" question in the finale movie.
I'll be fully honest. As an Ed, Edd n Eddy fan, I didn't really care.
Okay, you are a heretic, sir.
I just feel like any answer we would be given wouldn't actually be satisfiable compared to like people's theories and stuff.
See, I as much as I want it to be something weird and off the wall, because I'm me. I do like the fan theory that it has something to do with why Double D has dodgeball PTSD. Like maybe preschool age Double D had a dodgeball accident that scarred his head or something.
Yeah, my mind's either Scar or Tumor. I've heard the Tumor one before.
Yeah, I've heard Tumor. I've heard Tumor. I've heard Scars, and I've heard Skullcap from brain surgery or something. I also heard Cancer, which kind of would make sense because it would explain the enfeeblement of him.
It also would explain the little hairs stuff to his head, like in the back, with his cap on and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Although a lot of characters have the random 3 hairs thing, like Kevin does, Eddie does, Double D does.
Fair. Although again, I will say this does look similar to like later seasons when they started getting more increase in budget. But I do think that there is a slight upgrade, even more so.
Mm-hmm.
It could be maybe fluidity of the characters, the animation. But I'm not too sure. Either way, it looks good. It looks fun, and I'm intrigued.
Yeah, and again, it's good that it's good that there's at least one IP that has gone unmolested by any of the spite the fans, deconstruct everything bullshit.
I mean, it certainly helps that the creators are just huge ass nerds.
Yeah. And it must be said that if it weren't for Venture Brothers, there never would have been a Rick and Morty.
I don't know how to feel about that. Because I've made my feelings on Rick and Morty well known.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the thing I also like about before we move on, I'm sorry, it's now nothing to say. The thing I really like about the Venture Brothers is again, like it's able to parody things, but not come off as being as insulting the IP that it's parodied.
It's not spiteful and belittling like so many parodies of things are today.
Yeah.
And like I say, it also manages to be a comedy universe largely while still developing its own mythos.
And I won't disagree. It does. It does tend to be a very comedic universe, but it does have like those. You know, it's not comedy for the sake of comedy.
It reminds me a lot of Kim Possible, actually, like an adult version of Kim Possible.
Yeah, I can see that. You know what? I can actually see that and agree with you on that. Especially with the comparison you made earlier with like the Monarch and Dr. Draken.
Like I want there to be like some like D-list supervillain union so that they can have barbecues together or something like all the like incompetent villains like Dr. Draken, Dr. Doofenshmirtz, Jack Spicer, the Dark Lord Chuckles, the silly piggy from Dave the Barbarian.
Yeah. Anyway.
Banana.
From this clear combination.
Negotiation.
I shall take it from here.
Skedaddling.
You're gonna have to run away. What?
Half-assery.
Captain! Doing business on Kablooey 5 South! Pull your team and check it out!
One thing I will say for my selfish bullshit is I hope we see Dr. Orpheus in here.
We just did.
I didn't catch it. Where was he?
Yeah, he was in here. I think he's gonna have a big part in this movie.
I hope so.
I mean, if they're gonna have to, given this is effectively a finale,
Mm-hmm.
they're gonna have to pull out all the stops and like close up a lot of things. Yeah, he's in here.
Okay, good. That's an interesting design. That's an interesting kind of update to his design.
I don't think it's been updated.
It looks different from the episodes I've seen, but then again,
And
like you say, the animation style changes over the course of the later seasons. I haven't gotten there yet.
What season are you on? I'm legitimately curious at this point, just because like I feel like
I think I'm still on season 1. I think.
Oh, for fuck's sake. Yeah, animation.
The last episode I watched was the one where they were in court.
I know it's been a while, so. But.
And Dr. Orpheus was using the bathroom because he had just had Mexican or something, I think.
Hmm.
Anywho, banana.
I was trying to think if I had anything to say, but no, I think I'm good. Yeah. Yeah.
Blow-uppery. Tight pantsedness.
Stairs!
Doc, are you okay? What the hell is going on over there?
This is a setup. You can't possibly think I did this. We've been waiting all day.
Yeah, this is cool and it's fun and it's gonna be a fucking blast.
Mm-hmm.
Banana.
Banana.
For this, haven't you?
The Venture Brothers. Radiant is the blood of the baboon heart.
Ah, son of that could have been a baby's head. Now do you get it?
Look for it on digital and Blu-ray.
I am a little annoyed it's not going to be shown on TV.
Yeah. At least we're getting a chance to wrap things up, you know, like instead of just a cliffhanger ending that they had.
Yeah, like I say, it's always nice when shows are actually allowed to wrap up properly.
Just because it had a lot of things to. It's had a lot of plot threads hanging for a while now. You don't care about spoilers, I know that, but I feel like I should keep my mouth shut on certain things just because I feel like you watching it would be more of a greater experience.
Mm.
But yeah, that looks good. I'll probably get it. Again, I do agree. It does suck that they're not showing it on TV, like it's a full thing on Adult Swim or something.
Mm-hmm. And I probably will get it as soon as I actually finish the actual show.
So I'll make that soon. Sooner rather than later. Anyway, with that, folks, I want to say goodbye. Adios, aloha, auf Wiedersehen, sayonara, peace, cheers, and
Shalom and fuck off.